This is the Digital Shelf Insider podcast of Metriscart. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Digital Shelf Insider podcast of Metriscart. I'm your host, Shrestha, and today we have Priyanka Jha joining us. She has more than a decade of experience in omni-channel execution. She's worked with some of the big names such as Johnson & Johnson, Hanes, Groha, GSK, and more. Priyanka, very warm welcome to you on this episode. And I would like to hear it from you what your career journey has been like and all the cool stuff that you do.
Well, thanks for having me, Shrestha. It's been quite an honor being here. Let me briefly take you through my consumer journey. So, my journey really started with selling lingerie online for the US and UK markets
Right.
at Healing Farm, which is now part of Hanes. It was an incredible experience where I learned how to leverage analytics, consumer insights, pricing strategies, and user experience across web, customer service, and marketing channels. And that's where I truly understood how digital commerce works, not just in driving sales, but in shaping brand perception and long term consumer engagement. From there, I moved into home fashion, kitchen, and bath. I was given a blank slate to build a D2C channel from scratch. The company had a dropship model selling through major retailers, but they did not have their own D2C platform. So I had to do everything myself from social media marketing to building a D2C platform, influencer partnership. I even picked up I was also the customer service because, it was such a
Right.
startup kind of an environment. So I did everything. And that's when I realized that D2C has such a halo effect. Even when it's hard to attribute directly, you start seeing an exponential growth across all channels and uncover powerful consumer insights. So from there, I stepped into the world of consumer healthcare, CPG, very different from my previous experience, right? Largely because of, these companies have such great scales,
Yeah.
but not enough sort of like a direct data, but like huge scale.
Mm.
Uh, it was a really different experience in the sense that I got to learn a lot, right? From retail media activation, digital advertising, and market place expansion. I felt like I was in a university. There was constantly learning, and there was so much change happening from social commerce, live streaming. Just had to sort of be a student and, jump into it and keep learning. So basically, I was involved in, transforming e-commerce strategies for global brands, driving performance across major retailers, rolling out digital shelf capabilities. So at J&J, I was responsible for that, improving visibility into performance, attribution, and efficiency, and most recently, leveraging AI for SEO, content, and advertising, which is helping to accelerate speed to market and conversions. So, looking back, my D2C and e commerce journey across different categories, I've worked in all sorts of categories by now, has constantly challenged my assumptions. I have gone from wondering if women would really buy lingerie and shapewear from a marketplace, given that it's always been such a literally an intimate in store experience, to questioning whether consumers would actually pay shipping fees for heavy home goods. And more recently, I have been navigating the world of online transactions and CPG, where the dynamics are entirely different. Each category brings its own surprises, proving that consumer behavior is never predictable as we think. So I've always been surprised. I never tried to predict. And, this has been my journey.
That is big. And I think the takeaway is like we have to keep learning and evolving for each time. It's never going to be a constant.
It is never a constant. That's absolutely the key takeaway. And I've always been like surprised, So
Yeah.
the yeah, just keep doing it, keep testing, you don't have to go full scale, like test
Yeah.
it small kind of a thing, see if it's working, and then gradually expand.
Right. So you mentioned you started off at Haynes and then till now. So what was that time period? Like, which was that year?
Wow, you're going to date me now. Uh, it was 2008 or 9.
Right.
It was just Amazon was just at the cusp, you know. I mean, we sort of started selling it on Amazon. Like you were like, consumers were used to buying like from Gap and Banana Republic from D2C platform, but Amazon was still like coming up. It was more known for electronics back then and not for apparel. So we were like, let's start selling launcher on Amazon and let's see what happens. And we were like, oh my God, it's never gonna work because, we're talking about laundry and shapewear and, but yeah, we were surprised. So I would say that convenience has always been very sticky with the consumers, right?
Yeah. So the question I have is like from then until now, how much have you seen the digital shelf the landscape evolve?
Quite a bit.
Yeah, a
So
lot.
yeah, so it has come a long way evolving from basic product listings to dynamic data driven ecosystem that are all about optimizing findability, engagement, and conversion. So I remember how it started, right? When product listings were all about catchy labels like, I don't know if you remember like, oh, this is popular or just in new, or even like those labels like as seen on TV.
Right.
A decade ago, high quality images, 360-degree views, and those zoomed in shots of products were the gold standard. While those elements are still important, they're no longer enough to win consumers in our current landscape.
Yeah.
The key shifts I would say that's happened or happening rather is like from static, we move to the dynamic content. So the PDP pages, the product detail pages, are no longer set and forget. Brands are now A/B testing, making real-time content updates, and using AI to personalize the experience based on shopper behavior, demographics, and purchase history. And we've also moved beyond keywords, right? So 10 years ago, like keywords, stuffing in keywords was like, I remember like doing it on spreadsheet myself, sort of, that was like, key tactic. But now we move from that to search and retail media integration, right? So winning on the digital shelf isn't just about organic search anymore. Retail media networks like Amazon, Walmart, and Target have made paid visibility essential, integrating search ads and sponsored placements into the strategy. So share of search now is an important metric, really important, and everyone has to monitor whether you're going up and down, what your competitors are doing. And then consumer sentiments and ratings, right, are become like it's impacts bottom line now. So it's really, there's something that brands are looking into very, you know, I would say the focus has really in the last 2, 3 years, they've double clicked on this aspect. They're now actively mining sentiment data, responding to reviews in real time, and using AI ML capabilities to gather insights that can shape, right, your strategies, whether it's content, whether it's media, whether it's even innovation, right? And in an omni world, consumers bounce between online and in store, right? So brands have to make sure that their content, their PDPs reflect in store packaging, claims, and promotions. And I think the fourth one would be like AI powered images that's suddenly gaining a lot of traction, right?
Yes.
Video enhancements. So PDP, obviously, as I said, mentioned before, are no longer static. They're interactive and mobile first. So 360-degree images, video demos, and AI try-ons. I don't know if you've seen, but I've seen a lot of products. They have those AI try-ons on like Amazon.
Mostly
they
for
are,
apparels, right?
yeah, I have seen for some of the electronics as well, so that have like an electronic or whatever kitchen gear, just to see how it would fit on your on your kitchen in terms of height and everything. So these are revolutionizing how consumer interact with products online. but I cannot reiterate the importance of mobile first strategy, which may seem very basic, but I think there's a lot of work for brands to sort of, make sure that that's at core, right?
Yeah.
Mobile needs to be at core. So at the end of the day, the digital shelf has shifted from a one time setup to a constantly evolving insight driven engine. Brands that treat it as an always on performance channel, blending data, automation, and consumer sentiment, are the ones winning today.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing this value packed insights, Priyanka, here, especially the fact that you shared about consumer sentiments. And this is something we work very closely with brands at Metrics Card that, they need to look into their reviews and, very closely listen and make tweaks to their advertising, marketing, as well as product innovations, because they get to hear directly from their consumers and work on that.
Absolutely.
Uh, Another big challenge for brands today is creating the seamless experience that translates from offline to online formats. And a recent example would be from Super Bowl, where there were some brands who nailed it at their media ads and even the in store marketing. But when it came to online, there were product listing gaps that could be evidently found. So, how do you think, or what do you think are the possible best practices or strategies, brands can work with to bridge this gap so that, whatever they're doing offline translate to the online formats as well?
So, one of the biggest shifts I have not just observed but actively executed is applying a design thinking approach, right, to product listings. It's no longer just about optimizing keywords or improving visuals. It's about listening to consumers, right? Going back to what you said about, right, actively listening. And we don't do that enough because, some of the brands are legacy big and they think that the brand equity is sort of going to pull the weight. But obviously, that's not the case anymore, right? It's about listening to consumers, breaking out of internal echo chamber, and addressing unmet needs in a meaningful way, right? Um, at J&J Consumer Health, when I was working there, one of the key capabilities I led globally was leveraging AI ML to capture and analyze unstructured data to better understand and measure our own products, competitor offerings, and overall consumer and product sentiment. So, by integrating design thinking principles, we focused on empathizing with consumers, identifying pain points, and then iterating PDP content based on real user feedback and behavior rather than internal assumptions.
Definitely.
And I have written about this. It's on my LinkedIn kind of a thing. Like we actually had a couple of, brands where we saw negative reviews and how we sort of made that negative reviews into, a better review rating just by, you know, solving the consumer problem, the friction through changing some of our images, right? So some of the key like strategies that I would recommend would be like again, applying, I can reiterate this now, applying AI driven insights to uncover consumer pain points and unmet needs, uh, conducting competitive audits
Mm.
through the lens of design thinking, identifying gaps in content that would be filled to serve consumer needs, using rating and reviews,
Yeah.
running A/B testing, heat maps, and sentiment analysis to continuously refine product descriptions, imagery, and video assets. So, but I'm a big believer in design thinking because I feel that, a lot of the products or a lot of the brands have stopped listening to us. So my whole mantra is like listen, make it a two-channel kind of a conversation and just I mean be honest and transparent, and if something is not working, just take it out from your portfolio, and if something is working, double click on it. Brands that take this approach rather than relying on internal assumptions are the ones that truly stand out in a crowded marketplace. And you know who's doing this best? It's the startup brands.
Definitely.
So
Yes.
I would absolutely have a startup, a new brand. I would look into what they are doing rather than looking into the legacy brand and then just sort of try emulating what they are doing because they really have it right. And they are gaining market share from legacy brands.
Right. So true. And this is exactly what I wanted to ask you next. So we see the challenger brands, the new upcoming brands, they try to build this narrative or they have like really good storyline or a purpose which consumers can resonate with. Sometimes it could be around sustainability or some sort of green label, and it just clicks for them. So, and it doesn't translate the same way with legacy brands. And even very recently, you posted an article on LinkedIn. I think our audience should definitely check it out. It's about how ageism bias can creep in when we take into account the omni-channel executions. So, what do you think are some ways that could work well in helping brands to move beyond just thinking in a product transaction way and, kind of foster that long-term engagement with consumers?
Well, I mean, if you really see the in-store shopper, right? In-store shopper marketing and e-commerce have always been like different environment, right? And it's a tough bridge, right? Because the two environments feel so different. One is all about sensory experience, while the other is driven by convenience and data. But the gap is closing as brands integrate omni-channel strategies, digital touchpoints, and first-party data to create a smoother consumer journey. So, how does this translate? How does in-store shopper marketing translate into e-commerce? So, the in-store activations like, let's say, displays, promotions, and sampling don't always have a direct equivalent online, but with the right strategies, brands can replicate that shopper psychology and engagement online. Retail media networks, like digital versions of the digital versions of, I would say, the end caps and
Yeah.
aisle signage to boost visibility and drive targeted promotions. Shoppable video and social commerce are like in-store demos helping brands drive impulse buys. Loyalty programs and personalized offers are some of the digital incentives.
Yeah.
One great way to bridge the gap would be by using gamification
Yeah.
and behavioral science in omnichannel marketing. Like, for example, in store shopping often creates a sense of discovery
Yes.
and urgency, right? Like
Yes.
flash sales and things like that. So how can we try to create this online? You know, I mean, I've seen like Temu and Shane, they have the spin to win,
Yes.
win discounts or surprise deals like that mimic in store. Then live shopping events, which really hasn't caught up so much, but it's still in a nascent, at least in the US. But I've seen small influencers, actually, I wouldn't say small because they really are doing a wonderful job. Like, this is one influencer who sells sweatshirts, you know, and she builds this whole urgency and she opens her thing, you know, like Instagram, whatever. And then in a short span of time, she sells like, I don't know how many numbers of sweatshirts. That's it. She's so I mean, obviously, like smaller brands and individuals, they have got this strategy really tied down. It's difficult, I guess, to scale it when you are, when you become so
Right.
big. Like the flip side is like, how do you sort of mimic and scale that, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Obviously, it's seeing like startup brands do that much more effectively. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would say that, syncing message and promotion is important. QR code has obviously made a comeback. Back when I started with Made Informed QR code, it was, we had QR code, but no one was using it.
Yeah.
Uh, and then again, test and learn with omni-channel attribution models, right? Move beyond last click attribution and experiment with media mix modeling to see how your in-store promotion impacts online. I don't know, did I answer your question or did I just sort of
No, no, no. It did. It did. Yes. All right. The other question I have is, so is there So the offline formats, the physical formats, and the online marketplace presence. So there are so many channels that a brand is present at. And do you think any level of data integration is possible? It's
Wow.
tough.
No, yeah. I mean, data integration remains a challenge for many brands,
Yeah.
right? Um, I I think the data clean rooms enable retailers and CPG companies to collaborate by securely sharing transactional data,
Yeah.
improving targeting, personalization, and attribution. However, the biggest challenge remains the fragmented POS landscape,
Oh, yes.
varying industry needs, providers, and payment systems. To address this, brands should focus on integrating with APIs and centralizing data in a standardized way. I mean, it's easier said than done. I mean, I
Yeah.
honestly, it's way above my pay grade to really answer this. But, this will help create like unified customer profile, right? And analytics, identifying gaps like inventory and payment synchronization. But I have to say that, I mean, even with capabilities of some vendors that I've seen able to, let's say, scrape Walmart POS, to predict inventory,
Yeah.
even internally, brands are not ready to action on such data, right?
I understand.
So
Yeah.
internally, even if we do get data and sometimes we feel, oh my God, this is too good to be true,
Yeah.
industry are not right now at a mature stage to even action on such data.
Right.
So they have to really catch up
Yeah.
in terms. But yeah, I mean the POS system, different POS system really makes it complicated.
Makes sense. So, retail media is sort of this buzzword right now in the industry. It's been around for a long while, but right now there's this data that shows that Amazon has the largest slice of the pie, and there is no sort of standard or industry benchmark for measurement for all retailers and brands, and it's a big challenge. So how do you think, they can sort of effectively leverage in-store digital touch points to complement their online efforts when it comes to retail media?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, there is still a lot of excitement around retail media
Yeah.
because of its promise of closed loop measurement and the ability to tie media spend directly to sales. But now brands are realizing that really it isn't as clean cut.
Right.
The lack of standardized metrics across retailers makes it tough to compare performance.
Right.
Some retailers report influence sales, not actual incremental lift, which sort of muddies the water even more. So tomorrow, I have no ability to, you know, sort of tie the sale. Like, did the sale happen just because it was there online, or did it happen through this retail media activation, right? Because of
Exactly.
interface. And let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Mhm.
Retailers playing hardball. Some are making it clear if you don't invest in retail media, your products might get delisted or lose ranking visibility. That puts brands in a tough spot because media dollars should be driving growth, not just maintaining shelf space. So first, brands need to hold retailers accountable for performance. That means pushing for transparent data, real attribution models, and competitive benchmarks. It also means running geo holdouts and control groups to see if media is actually driving new sales or just capturing, existing demand. So you have to move beyond ROAS and sort of test incrementality. I mean, I think brands have sort of, moved from just looking into ROAS and they've started looking into incrementality. And here's a bigger conversation. Retail media can't just become a pay to play model, right? Where the highest bidder wins visibility.
Yeah.
If that happens, it erodes consumer trust and stops being valuable for brands in the long run. We need to move towards performance based visibility where relevance and engagement, not just ad dollars, are driving the rank. So that's how retail media stays sustainable, measurable, and actually impactful. Now, as far as like the in-store, I mean, a lot of the retail media advertising is just not for online, right?
Mhm.
It has like an in-store as well.
Yes,
And I
yes.
think, so, there are in-store displays, in-store activation,
Yeah,
and how I think the problem is like lack of standardization, right? So
definitely.
while Amazon does it really well
Mhm.
and Walmart Connect is, and I'm not
Catching up.
catching up. I think it's probably there with its Luminate. I mean, now I think the platform is called something else. It's definitely giving a lot more data.
Yeah,
Uh, and with the clean room, the data and tech are setting up. But I think the other retailers' measurement, capabilities are just not there. So a lot to happen. I do sense a little frustrations on the brand side in terms of, because how do you sort of, keep investing because, and not seeing the ROI. The
exactly.
other thing is, it needs to be an integrated media, right? So
Yeah.
your national, your trade, your digital, your retail, all needs to sort of speak to, a cohesive language, right? It needs to be integrated. And that's when you start seeing, beyond.
Actual results.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. We have almost come to the end of the session, and this is the question I have for you. So, if you had to describe the future of CPG industry in just a word, what would that be?
I am not a big shot in predicting the future. Like
Yeah.
I said in the beginning,
Yeah.
I've always been surprised.
Mhm.
And so I'm not going to predict the future. But if there's one thing that pandemic and Gen AI have shown us,
Mhm.
it's that we can innovate and pivot quickly,
Right.
right? When needed. While I can't say exactly what's going to change,
Mhm.
what will remain consistent is our ability to adapt. The industries that will stay relevant are the ones that embrace shifting consumer trends and can quickly differentiate between lasting trends and flash in the pan fads. So, and again, do not ignore the fringe consumers because that can be your future.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Priyanka, for joining us. It was such a great, rich conversation, and I'm sure our audience feel the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Rishna. Bye.
Bye. We've come to the end of the episode. If you loved what you just listened to, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll be back next Monday with a really awesome guest. Stay tuned until then.